Matt Adams says the city is now completely rebounded.
Look, we recovered pretty quick. City crews and, police and fire, jumped into action and taking care of things. Of course, with any storm, you never know what's going to happen. We had a couple of days without electricity, which is typical with a storm. And that's probably our biggest hurdle, is getting our utilities back up. And those guys with the utility department did a great job,
His words are very true. It was hard to tell a Category 2 hurricane was here just last September.
No doubt that is the eye wall moving across St. Mary and Terrebonne Parish at this time.
One of the main impacts from the hurricane was the loss of power. But this could be mitigated in the future.
So, I can't really speak for the mayor, but, he's been working since the storm. We have an older electrical system here, and he's been really working with state officials on getting an upgraded system here in Morgan City.
Adams also states that they are very ready if disaster decides to strike again.
Look, we're always prepared. We're in South Louisiana. We always seem to be in the eye of, a hurricane when it's coming, some form or fashion. But, our citizens here are great. Be prepared as normal. Don't ever let your guard down. And, make sure you have your supplies in place. And if you plan on leaving for a storm, leave early.
For the Storm Station, I'm meteorologist Balin Rogers.
This hurricane season arrives with a stark reminder of how devastating a storm can be. August 29th will mark 20 years since Hurricane Katrina hit Louisiana and swamped New Orleans, changing the area forever. John Pasterek takes us to the Katrina zone as he explores that fateful day and its aftermath.
This garden and gallery tell the story of Katrina and the London Avenue Canal. It's calm and quiet now, but 20 years ago, it was chaos, a catastrophe. This whole area was covered under water, sand, and debris. Let's look back at the hurricane that changed New Orleans and Louisiana forever.
It was more like a movie scene. You think about movies, that type of stuff happens in movies.
But it wasn't a movie. It was Katrina. August 29, 2005, just after 6 a.m. The hurricane hit Buras, packing winds of up to 125 miles an hour. It appeared New Orleans had escaped the worst. But that afternoon, officials confirmed a breach at the 17th Street Canal. By the next day, 80% of the city was underwater, including Tellis Huff's Garden District home. So he and his family moved up to the rooftop.
From the roof, we had to go to the people next door roof, jump over from roof to roof because their roof was higher than ours.
They lived from rooftop to rooftop. And with no food and water, his determination to survive turned into desperation.
I thought like killing myself. I really did. I didn't know how we was going to make it from there, from that moment on. I really thought about, what am I going to do now? How are we going to survive now?
More than 1 million people fled the city. Thousands crowded into the Superdome and the Convention Center, evacuation centers of last resort, where there was no food, water, or toilets. Others like Huff were trapped, rescued from rooftops, pulled into boats that navigated city streets turned into rivers. Huff waded through the floodwaters until he was rescued.
The biggest lesson, when they say leave, leave. Don't take it for granted.
One of the fundamental concepts of war is to surprise the enemy. Katrina created that surprise in its...
A war that needed a general in command. Lieutenant General Russell Honoré led Task Force Katrina. 20 years later, he calls this wall in his home the Katrina Wall.
Display it this way.
Here are memories of a weather war that defined his career, including this famous picture with the commander-in-chief, then President George Bush.
On the evacuation, when he came and criticized for not stopping, came back and said, "Cowboy, get these people out of here."
And they did. He led one of the largest evacuations in U.S. history, helping rescue and evacuate more than 30,000 people from the Superdome and Convention Center.
This is what we're designed to do, is to bring in comms, bring in airplanes, bring in ships. We did all of that.
And then right here is where the breach starts. And I guess it goes out all the way to Mirabeau.
Hurricane historian and former state climatologist Barry Keim takes us to an infamous place in Katrina history, the London Avenue Canal.
Well, it looks probably a lot like it looked prior to Katrina coming through. This is where the levee came down, and this is where, again, where the water went underneath the sheet pile and compromised the foundation of the levee system.
So this kind of shows you how big the breach was.
Yes, absolutely.
But it never came over, it came under.
It came under.
And then just pushed it down.
As we look down, that land is probably 4 feet below sea level, and the water got up to 9 feet above sea level, so the water was 15 feet higher than what you're seeing there.
This is an actual picture of what the area looked like 20 years ago. It was one of more than 50 breaches of the New Orleans levee system, burying homes, cars, and streets in the aftermath of the failed flood walls and bubbled up sand.
It was a transformational moment for New Orleans. I mean, New Orleans was just going on its merry way, and life was great in the city, and then just all of a sudden, everything changed in an instant.
20 years later, there are still many reminders of Katrina in New Orleans, like this house on Warrington Drive in Gentilly. They call it the Flooded House Museum. Walk through it and you still hear the ghost, the memories, the cries, to make sure the levees never break again. It's a Katrina moment frozen in time through the memories and creativity of artists who used their own Katrina experiences to create and paint this portrait of a catastrophe.
It's amazing what artists can do. One of the artists, his own home actually flooded, and so he was able to give us a pretty good idea of what those flood lines actually looked like.
It's the creation of Sandy Rosenthal, who also founded the group Levees.org in the aftermath of Katrina.
I'm not an engineer, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a politician, but I had to use all of those things to get the truth out about why New Orleans flooded during Hurricane Katrina.
20 years later, what is the truth?
The truth is that a catastrophe of this scale is usually caused by man, people, and this one absolutely was caused by people. They made a mistake. They failed to build the levees properly, and rather than own up to it, they spent years harassing anyone that tried to get the truth out.
Now, historical markers, gardens and galleries, museums stand where neighborhoods once thrived, memorials to the Katrina generation that rose from disaster.
And remember, don't pay too much for your mattress. Get the BR mattress today.
Now, back to the Storm Station's Hurricane Preparedness Special.
2 projects underway working cohesively to prevent flooding in communities from storm surge, while also restoring dying wetlands. News 2's Sarah Gray-Barr took a swamp ride to learn about efforts to reduce hurricane risks.
The West Shore Lake Pontchartrain project is expansive, an 18.5-mile risk reduction system made up of levees, flood walls, drainage structures, gates, and pump stations. The goal is to protect an area that spans St. Charles, St. John the Baptist, and St. James parishes, which the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers says has little infrastructure to reduce hurricane risks. Along with protecting the more than 60,000 in the area, the project would also protect I-10, the evacuation route for those in New Orleans.
When you have a hurricane like Ida and like Isaac, the storm surge pushes water that is in Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas. It wants to push the water down south to then flood the community. Mostly the area that flooded the worst during those storms was Laplace.
The Corps says Hurricane Isaac's storm surge flooded around 7,000 homes and put part of Interstate 10 underwater. It's a 100-year level risk reduction system stretching from the Bonnie Carey spillway to Garyville.
Everything to the east is already protected by that system already because it was done as part of the New Orleans system.
Some may worry such an expansive risk reduction system will encourage storm surge floodwaters to move west. Williams said that's not the case.
There's always some concern that, okay, when you put a system in one place, all it's doing is pushing the water into a community in another place, right? What the hydraulic modeling suggests, especially as we go further west, the natural ground gets higher going further west. So at some point, the ground is higher and it does not cause flooding.
Construction is expected to finish in 2029. The Corps announced its selection of Maurepas Swamp as compensatory mitigation in 2023.
Usually when you do a levee project, you're going to impact some of the wetlands in the area, and you have to do mitigation. You have to offset the impacts that you have on the wetlands.
Coastal scientist Alicia Renfro says the Maurepas Swamp is slowly dying.
We built levees along the river for flood protection, for navigation, but that cut off the freshwater and sediment flowing into the surrounding wetlands.
Brad Miller is Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority's project manager for the river reintroduction into Maurepas Swamp. He says there have been talks about this project for 20 years.
It's a big success story of these 2 major multi-million-dollar, hundreds of millions of dollar projects being put on the landscape at the same time.
The project will put 3 box culverts in the Mississippi River levee, which will connect to a conveyance channel that will meet the existing Hope Canal.
This is the easy part because what we're seeing has been a canal for over 100 years called Hope Canal. For this portion of the project, we're just widening Hope Canal.
Releasing water into the Maurepas Swamp outfall area north of I-10.
This project in Maurepas Swamp will improve the wetland buffer from Baton Rouge to New Orleans. Those leading the project say it brings flood protection and also ecosystem restoration.
Without this project, what would happen is that the swamp would die off, eventually convert to marsh, and then disappear, leaving this gigantic open water area. And then pretty soon, Baton Rouge would become waterfront property. It's that buffer between Baton Rouge and the Gulf of Mexico, and without that, it becomes exposed to the Gulf.
In Garyville, Sarah Gray-Barr, WBRZ News 2.
The Storm Station's Hurricane Preparedness Special will return shortly. The Storm Station's Hurricane Special is sponsored by Entergy.
Entergy Louisiana is strengthening our power grid from Lake Charles to Baton Rouge, Metairie to Monroe. Our blueprint covers the state. Nearly 10,000 projects, over 11,000 miles of transmission line. We're reinforcing infrastructure to prepare for stronger storms, reduce outages, and respond quicker when you do need us. We're making stronger connections in every community because together, we power life.
Let's go inside the weather with Storm Station meteorologist Dr. Josh Eaches.
On previous editions of Inside the Weather, we've talked about how fireworks can cause anxiety for our furry friends, but so too can an incoming summer boomer. Many dogs are afraid of loud noises. In addition to thunder, dogs may become nervous when they see flashes of lightning or hear rain beating on the roof. Their keen senses also detect changes in air content and pressure. Unfortunately, we can't reason with dogs in the way we might a child. Some dog parents may use tight shirts, vests, or wraps under the theory that pressure applied to the dog's torso causes a calming effect similar to swaddling a crying infant or hugging a distressed person. Vets say there is little scientific evidence that these vests actually work, but pet owners do report improvements in their pet's anxiety when in use. Of course, talk to your vet about how to best manage your pet's nerves these dog days of summer.
Scan for more Inside the Weather, sponsored by Entergy. On April 14, 1955, Doug Manship Sr. flipped a switch and changed Baton Rouge television. For the past 70 years, WBRZ has grown and evolved, never losing focus as the only family-owned station. Although the faces in the newsroom may have changed, the rich generational tapestry continues to grow through the present day, focusing on your stories while impacting positive change in the community. Channel 2 is more than a news station. WBRZ is a family tradition. Now, back to the Storm Station's Hurricane Preparedness Special.
Every hurricane impact to Louisiana presents new challenges and lessons learned in the response effort. Officials are mindful of that. Before the tropics start heating up, they're reflecting on past storms and assessing current capabilities. The Storm Station got an exclusive look at how the Louisiana National Guard is preparing for hurricane season. Storm Station meteorologist Malcolm Byron explains.
It's not a matter of if, but when.
All indications point to the storm being a major hurricane prior to landfall. Under your direction, sir, land forces will begin to posture an appropriate response.
This only a simulated exercise for now, a sign that hurricane season is fast approaching and the Louisiana National Guard is preparing. On one late May afternoon, around 50 key leaders from the state and National Guard met for a tabletop exercise.
We have a simulated scenario where a major Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricane is going to hit Louisiana, and then we go through all of the actions essentially on the objective.
A scenario informed by past events. Take Hurricane Laura or Ida, for instance, where numerous communities were affected from the coast all the way up to our northern parishes.
How do we stretch all of our resources to respond in a manner of that nature? And that's how I want to use this exercise to extend our resources as much as possible.
This is Major General Thomas Freelou, Adjutant General of Louisiana.
We started planning J357, a year ago?
Yes, sir.
We start planning for the next hurricane season before the hurricane season actually starts.
He's running the show, ensuring the National Guard is ready to respond. So what might a successful exercise look like?
A successful one would be the Adjutant General has very few questions, and he walks away with the confidence that all of the brigade commanders have done their diligence.
That includes things like equipment maintenance and staging, as well as the ability of about 8,000 available guardsmen to respond in any manner. There are no guarantees that a hurricane will impact Louisiana this hurricane season, but as we all know, we always have to be prepared, from the government level all the way down to having an emergency kit in your home. For the Storm Station, I'm meteorologist Malcolm Byron.
Our website, WBRZ.com, is a valuable resource from start to finish this hurricane season. It includes information on what you may need to get through any storm, including how to plan for an evacuation, caring for pets in a disaster situation, and emergency contact information. We at the Storm Station, here for you, providing fast, accurate information to help you make the best decisions for the safety of you and your family. Thank you for joining us, and remember, we are all in this together.
Entergy Louisiana is strengthening our power grid from Lake Charles to Baton Rouge, Metairie to Monroe. Our blueprint covers the state. Nearly 10,000 projects, over 11,000 miles of transmission line. We're reinforcing infrastructure to prepare for stronger storms, reduce outages, and respond quicker when you do need us. We're making stronger connections in every community because together, we power life.
Want a shot at winning $3 grand? All you got to do is sell your car to BYOT Auto Parts. We're giving away $3,000 every month, June, July, and August. We'll buy any vehicle in any condition, and we pay you on the spot. And just like that, you're entered into the BYOT Auto Parts 9K giveaway. The more cars you sell, the better chances you have. Don't miss the 9K giveaway only at BYOT Auto Parts.
Call me Peyton Murphy. I am Louisiana's knee injury lawyer.
Glow Resources, complete employer solutions. GlowResources.com.
So the Tigers are national champions. You know this town will not sleep tonight.
We just go out and win as many games as we can.
See what he's done with the program. He can't ask for too much more than that.
The passion that our fans have, I've never seen anything like it.
The journey only lasts as long as the people run. And LSU has won it.
The Shack Attack will be back.
I'm Josh Eachus. You're watching the Storm Station, WBRZ News 2.
Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. Violent protests as ICE agents take migrants into custody. More than 40 million Americans on alert for severe storms, and Coco Gauff makes history at the French Open. First, the new clashes over ICE arrests. Protests erupting from California to New York as the Trump administration ramps up its immigration crackdown. And Kilmar Abrego Garcia, now back in the U.S., 2 months after he was mistakenly deported to El Salvador. The charges he's now facing stemming from this 2022 traffic stop, according to DHS, and why a top prosecutor abruptly resigned over the case. Dangerous weather impacting millions from the heartland to the East Coast. Severe storms firing up with damaging winds and potential flash floods. Texas and parts of Arkansas already hit hard. Our weather team timing it out. Coco's comeback. Coco Gauff becomes the first American woman in a decade to win the French Open. Just 21 years old, how she came roaring back to beat the top seed in 3 grueling sets. Police say they've captured the alleged ringleader in a series of high-end burglaries. The targets, pro athletes. Authorities say hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of items stolen. How police say the suspect's car led to his arrest. Our ABC News exclusive, Martha Raddatz in Ukraine with President Zelensky. The Ukrainian leader telling Martha that Russia does not want to stop the war. The search for a former army soldier wanted in the deaths of his 3 little